why I asked that is because, you know, there's times that like for me personally where it's like some people think that because I'm outside.
You're him. what did Devin say? Himothy?
Him Jones.
Him Jones.
Yo, what's up? I'm Anthony.
And I'm Sen.
And welcome to episode 2 of Open Invite, a show where community, culture, and entertainment intersects.
Yes, sir. Welcome, everybody. We are going to be continuing our conversation from last time because I feel like we wrapped it, but also like kept it open because we were talking about so many good things.
Absolutely.
And so, but before we dive into that, how are you?
I'm good. I think, it's been a lot going on. We've had a lot of events, over the past couple of weeks.
That's right.
And,
y'all had the back to back.
6 events in 4 days.
Wild.
Who can? Who else can?
Okay. I don't know.
Okay. If it's not us, then who?
Then who?
But I think it was cool that, the city came out for that and people enjoyed it, and I'm just ready for summertime,
Ooh, I know.
Yeah.
I know. I'm ready too.
Yeah.
Listen.
What about you? How are you doing? Before we even jump into that, how are you?
Well, I'm doing well.
Uh-huh.
I'm doing well. I am excited to be here. I'm excited that we are in this space where we have been working on stuff for so long and now it's here. And I just think I'm excited. I'm happy. I'm grateful.
Yeah.
I'm alive. My birthday is next week, so I'm,
Hey.
getting old,
Okay.
older and wiser,
Yep.
but I'm doing well. I'm doing
You
well.
got any birthday plans?
I don't.
Wow.
I don't.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel like the older that I get, the more that I'm like, it's my birthday and it's great
Yes.
and I'm happy. But no, I don't. I just got work.
Well, hopefully, wait, hold on. Next week, I might actually have an event. So, if you think about it,
I might pop out for a little bit, but you know how I am.
Yeah.
It'll be like, it's 10:30. I gotta go home. But yes, we'll see.
Oh my gosh, I'm glad you're doing good though.
Thank you. But anyway, so how are you feeling? How are you feeling about our last conversation?
I think our last conversation was amazing. I think oftentimes people don't get to know me on a personal level, So I think it was very freeing for me to kind of share that because oftentimes, sometimes people feel like they got to wear a mask and they can't fully express themselves or say everything they really want to say. And sometimes we really don't get that opportunity to do so. So for me, I think it was very freeing. It was very relaxing. It wasn't stressful at all. I'm proud of my background.
Yeah.
I'm proud of all the trials and tribulations I've been through to get to where I'm at now.
Yeah.
I think it was good,
And I'm proud of you because even for us doing this,
Yeah.
I know that we kind of talked about the pivot, like the idea of the pivot. And I know that this is a pivot for you in so many ways. You are the guy who be outside because you be outside, but but people really don't get to know you on a personal level unless they're within the confines of your little tribe. And so I'm proud of you for even being open to doing this.
No, I think this was great, and I think it's one of those things where people are gonna just get to know us a little bit even more because like I said, you don't really get the opportunity to do so. But I think it's important for people to be able to know the person or the people that they're supporting. They get to know a little bit more about them. So
Absolutely.
thankful for that.
Of course. And so then diving into the idea of the pivot, how many times, if you were to, quantify it, which I think is kind of hard to quantify, how many times you have to pivot, but maybe what stands out to you? Is there a specific pivot or specific pivots that have stood out to you where you're like, Sin, I promise you, at this juncture in my life, I had to make a shift? And what did you lean into to be able to make those specific shifts?
Wow, that's a great question. I think at every pivot, I had to really trust my faith. I think that is really where a lot of this stems from because, oftentimes when, it's not as easy as going on Google and searching up an answer for what you're looking for. You got to kind of like sit by yourself, sit alone, and start, talk to God and figure out what's the best pivot to make, So I think I've often done that. Like usually I always do that. I mean, faith is at the top tier for everything for me. So, but I think the biggest pivot or the most notable pivot for me was like, I think it just came down to like knowing that, that's a good question. I think
It's
for
hard,
me,
yeah,
I think
because
for
so
me,
many.
yeah, I think for me, it probably had to come down to like, when I got laid off. This is a good way for me to say this. So, backtracking a little bit, I used to always want to kind of see how it would be to be in full-time entrepreneur.
Okay.
Not have a 9 to 5.
Okay.
Just wake up and do whatever makes sense
And
to
just
me.
work on your business.
Yeah, and work on my business.
Yeah.
Last year, with everything that's advancing in tech and everybody just making all of these drastic cuts, I was one of the people that got cut.
Yeah.
And at first, I had so many different emotions that were kind of like I was going through. I was angry, I was annoyed, I was mad, I was frustrated, I was sad. But then I had to realize that like the day still got to go. You still got to figure it out. So for me, I really had to start asking a lot of friends that were full-time entrepreneurs, like, how are they doing it? How are they able to sustain a lifestyle when they're not getting that bi-weekly check that's coming in to pay for their bills? And for me, that kind of like made me have to wake up a little bit and be like, hey, I can't waste a day.
Yeah. A
day got to be closer to not only securing the bag, but also putting myself in a better position to make that full pivot,
Yeah.
It's crazy. It was 6 months of just being full-time entrepreneur.
Oh, and how was that, right? How
How
was that?
Not.
Because it was, because what I hear you saying is this was a pivot that wasn't necessarily voluntary.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What was yes, you felt all the emotions, but what were some practical steps that you took in navigating through a season where you had to take an involuntary pivot?
Yeah. I think the most important thing is to make sure you create a routine, because oftentimes what happens is like, just like anybody naturally, it's like when you don't have work for a day, like when you, like on a Saturday or Sunday, if you don't have to work, you may wake up whenever you want to, you may sleep in a little bit, but you do that often enough, it's gonna become a routine, and that's a routine that is hard to pivot out of, So it came down to being like, I had to actually schedule out days out of or hours out of my day to be able to know, hey, I'm gonna wake up at this time, I'm gonna wake up, apply for jobs, I'm gonna go and run errands, I'm gonna go work out, I'm gonna do all these things to keep myself active.
Absolutely.
To being able to get back into that transition. Because even for me, like when I was laid off, it was like I tried to still treat the morning time as if I still had a job.
That's
so
good.
It was like scheduling out time to send emails, scheduling out times to like, this is when I'm gonna chat with this person or that person, or just setting up a time to just apply for jobs. Just comes down to making a routine. I think that was the biggest thing for me.
I like that.
Yeah, I think that's really what it was.
I like that. I like that. And I think that, in that, because, and I'm actually glad you mentioned that specific time in your life, right?
Yeah.
Because we were obviously, in communication at that time, kind of just checking in on each other and things of that nature. And we were in very similar circumstances.
Yeah.
And I remember we would always talk about, okay, so how do we take this next step? How do we do this next thing? And also still continue to make sure that we're taking care of our responsibilities. That was another thing too, right? But I remember in having those conversations with you, full transparency, that was hard for me because I don't tend to bring people into my journey in that way unless it's like my family or
Yeah.
like you're my best friend,
Yeah.
then you know what's happening, right? But I remember in that time, we would have the conversations. And of course, I opened up to you because
Yeah.
it was necessary for me to have that level of vulnerability to say, hey, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
you're going through this. And also,
Yeah.
I'm also going through something similar. And I'm curious though, because I know that oftentimes it tends to be maybe a little bit easier for, let's say, women to be able to say, I'm going through this vulnerable season in my life. And these are the areas where I need support,
Yeah.
or these are the areas where I feel like I don't know how to do that next thing. How is it for you to be to have even been comfortable enough to share and say, hey, Sin, to be honest with you, this is what's currently happening.
Yeah.
So let's kind of shift our priorities in this season to be able to make sure that we're both good
Yeah.
before we do this next thing.
Yeah. I think for me, it's one of those things where I have this thing where if I've committed to something, I'm afraid to let people down, especially when it comes from me. It's like word is bond. That's like
I
one of
love
those things
that. I
where
love that.
everybody knows, like, if I say I'm gonna do it, I'm
You're
gonna
gonna do it.
I'm gonna figure out a way, but I'm gonna get it done.
Yeah.
So I think like when life throws that curveball and you're not able to bounce back the way that you want,
Yeah.
I think it's really important to be able to be transparent with people that you're working with, people that you often communicate with, and be vulnerable about what's going on in your life. So that way there's a little bit of understanding why certain tasks can't get completed by a certain time or a
Yeah.
deadline that was set.
Yeah.
I think that's really why it was like important for me, because I know that this is also IMG, this is Open Invite. There's
Yeah.
so many things that are tied into all of this. It's the schedule for the production
The
and
team,
all
yeah.
that, the team, the squad. So I'm part of the team, so it's like I don't want to be that person that doesn't communicate that, to be able to know that, hey, this is where I'm going through, and I need you guys to understand,
Yeah.
and let's figure out a way to pivot.
I love that. I love that. And I love that you mentioned, you stay true to your commitments because oftentimes, especially when you're going through a season where everything is shaken,
Yeah.
at that time, I describe that time of my life as everything that could have been shaken was literally shaken, from my personal relationships, finances, life as I knew it. I mean, literally everything that could have been shaken was shaken,
Yeah.
right? And one of the things that I leaned into was becoming more transparent and vulnerable to share with people about what was happening because it was necessary, right? And in that, I started to make certain commitments to myself,
Yeah.
because sometimes it's easier to make commitments to other people versus how it is for us to make commitments to ourselves, right? Because sometimes, like, I, I'll have grace on myself. I'll do that later. Versus
Yeah.
having like, no, you have this hard stop, you have this deadline, you
Yeah.
have this schedule, you have A, B, C, D, and E to be able to do that. And so for you in that season, especially as you made the commitment to me with IMG and any other things that you were doing
Yeah.
at that time, who did you lean into, whether it be a person or people? Who did you lean into in that season, and why was that important for you to not journey alone?
I leaned into a lot of different people, friends, family, peers.
Mm-hmm.
I leaned into so many different people because I feel as though there's a there's a part of me in everybody that I've kind of like touched base with. So there's a community of people that are community organizers. So I kind of touch base with them. There's people in the tech world that I touch base with them. There's people that, like, you know, working out. There's people that like I often run miles, and
How many miles you be running? You over here running
yeah,
miles.
I'll be running like 2 or 3 or something like that, just to get
Straight
the blood
shot,
going.
no,
Yeah.
no stopping.
Sometimes I might have to walk.
Yeah, okay.
Sometimes I might have to walk, but there's there's
I'm
a
like, okay,
community of
Miles.
So I'm tapping into all these groups that kind of like make me.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I think it was just a little bit of everything, and maybe there was points and times where I may not necessarily share everything, but I may
Mm.
share enough that is like of what needs to be shared
Mhm.
for the community or the people that I'm talking
Mhm.
to. Yeah, I think that was it for me.
Yeah.
But I do have a question for you.
What's that?
Um, Earlier, you kind of mentioned that you were, you didn't really want to speak to other people about the stuff that you were going through.
Mhm.
Was that more because of like embarrassment? Was it more because you were gonna let people down, or what
Mm.
was it about it that you didn't feel like you wanted to share with others?
Come on, good question. That's a good question. Um, I think for me, it had multiple layers,
Mm,
right? A, by nature, for anyone who knows me, by nature, you know about this much about Cynthia.
yeah,
Literally,
yeah,
right? Like the people who know me, and the people who don't, hey y'all, what's up?
yeah,
Like that's literally
yeah,
it, right? So that's just my personality
yeah.
by nature. But in that though, even sometimes the people within
Mm,
my close circle sometimes would, didn't really know what was happening
yeah,
because for a very long time I operated from this mindset of I got it,
yeah,
I'll take care of it.
yeah,
I got it, I'll take care of it.
mm,
And then when everything was shaken up, I realized I can't
yeah,
because everything that worked once upon a time did not work.
mm,
It's as though I literally feel like, now I might be a little dramatic, but I literally feel like in that season, it's like God put a hard stop and
mm,
said, you cannot depend on yourself in your own strength to be able to do this thing,
yeah,
period.
yeah,
Because you know how it is, like when you get stuff done and you are just like you're able to, check things off the ball, or, off a list,
yep,
or get things accomplished, have whatever achievements, etc. You start to think that you're doing that on your own,
mm,
and when in reality, it's a connection of yes, your own skills, your own expertise, your own giftings, absolutely, and all the other pieces that work together to be that work together to make sure that you're able to do that thing, right? And
yeah,
so with that said, because I was able to just always figure things out.
yeah,
There's this joke that my previous boss had was like, "Dang, Sin, what can't you do?" And I always be like, "Girl, I can't swim.
yeah,
That's the one thing I can't do. I can't
yeah,
swim." But because I would always figure it out.
mm,
And for the first time, I wasn't able to figure it out.
yeah,
And so it was like a forced space of vulnerability.
mm,
But in that forced space of vulnerability, I realized that there's a pride thing attached
mm,
to me not wanting people to know what's happening. Yes, partially my personality. Also, it's cultural.
yeah, absolutely,
Let's not forget,
yeah,
you're African.
yeah,
It's a cultural thing.
absolutely,
So it's like there's so many layers that kind of go into why it is that we operate in the way that we do.
yeah,
And for me, part of it was really because, like, dang, like I got too much pride to be like, hey, to be
yeah,
honest with you,
yeah,
right now, things are not really
yeah,
looking up. You know
yeah,
what I mean? And also, it's again, it's cultural, generational, societal. I mean, it's so layered, but I will say in that though, because I was forced, truly, I felt like I was forced
mm,
into vulnerability. What it allowed for me to do is, and I'm not saying I'm completely vulnerable. I'm not even gonna sit here
yeah,
and lie to you. There's still many things that I'm like, oh, I got it.
yeah,
But it's like, but Sin, do you really got it though?
yeah,
Do you really got
yeah, yeah,
it? But in that, what it's forced me to do is to be more trusting,
mm,
because in the journey, what I realized was that in peeling back the layers of I don't really share enough, I don't really lean into my people enough.
mm,
It's because really it comes down to trust. Do I trust my people enough to know that if I really don't got it, they got me?
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like also I love that you mentioned that because I think oftentimes it's like it's so hard to trust anybody, you know? This society is
In
really crazy.
2025?
Yeah. It's very
Listen.
crazy, you know? So it's like one of those things where it's like, you got to really like, commend the people that are in your circle because, you know, it's so hard to find trust, it's so
It is.
hard to earn trust. It's
Yeah.
it's hard for all of that. So
Yeah.
I commend you on that
Thank
completely.
you.
You know,
Mm.
do you ever think about times where like you've had to like, although you had so many people around you, maybe your peers, you still felt alone with navigating all these things?
Mm. That's a good question.
Because the reason why I
Hmm.
ask that is because, you know, there's times that like for me personally where it's like some people think that because I'm, I'm outside.
You're him. What did Devin say? Himothy?
Him
him,
Jones, Him
him Jones.
Jones. Sometimes people think that because I'm outside, I'm doing events, I'm around a lot of people all the time,
Yeah.
I'm asking all of these people all the time about assistance on things on how to navigate, navigate whatever I'm going through personally. But sometimes I could feel like I could be actually alone. Like I feel like I am
Mm.
in this space. Like it's almost like you ever looked at that what was that? It's not necessarily a comic book, but it was like a picture book where it's like Where's Waldo?
Mm.
And you see a whole bunch of people, whole bunch of distractions,
Yeah.
and you're literally searching for like
Whew.
Waldo. You
Yeah.
look that's how I would feel sometimes.
Really.
So yeah, because like I'm just going through whatever I'm going through mentally, but then I
Mm.
know that like because everybody's looking for me to kind of like be the maestro of the event, I'm still still being hospitable to help everybody out,
Yeah.
but I'm still trying to deal with what I'm
Ooh.
going through.
Ooh.
But I'm alone in that. But I'm in the midst of everybody. You
Ooh.
know. So for you, do you ever
Mm.
feel like although you have a lot of people around, you still feel alone?
That's a really good question. Whew. Full transparency, I
Yeah.
don't know how to answer that.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how to answer that. A, because I don't be around people like that.
Yeah.
But no, on a serious note, because I also have to think about
Yeah.
the spaces that I have to navigate in my day to day, let's say with work or
Yeah.
whatever the case might be. So I be around people,
Yeah.
but it's really for a specific function.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to think about that
Yeah.
because my initial thought is no.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say no is because I've cultivated a space where my solitude is like my safe space.
Yeah.
I truly say there is so much peace in solitude
Mm-hmm.
because I'm able to really process through things,
Yeah.
get to the heart of things, ask myself really difficult questions. I'll go on a walk. Like I'm that person I love nature.
Yeah.
I find a little trail somewhere and I just go on a walk and I just talk and I just pray and I just do all the things,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, I say no, because there's almost this innate peace that resonates in spite of.
Yeah.
With that said, I think that that's only one layer. And I don't think that I've actually confronted that
Mm-hmm.
in a way that I probably could.
Yeah.
Because I can see from me, from my perspective, what I'm thinking of is being the person who always, like I said, like, I got it, I'm gonna figure it out,
Yeah.
right? And so being that person, people sometimes tend to think, oh, she got it, she'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Versus being like, hey, how are you? What's going on?
Yeah.
Are you good? Type of thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think that maybe the aloneness, if that's even a word,
Mm-hmm.
might be in the sense of, dang, like I just sometimes I don't really got it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so maybe that's where that is. But I would have to really, we might have to have a therapy session.
Yeah.
I might have to schedule something
Yeah.
because that's a good question because I haven't really thought of it too
Yeah.
much, right? Because by nature, I'd be like, I'm cool.
Yeah. And I think it started coming from me where like, you know, we do so many events, like so many events, and then you're still like having to cater to your 9 to 5 and knowing that you got to cater to your personal life and figuring out ways to be able to offset all of the bad times with the good
Yeah.
and knowing that although although everybody's out to have a good time, I'm still looking at this as a job. So if I'm
Yes.
showing up to work and I'm not myself mentally,
Mm-hmm.
I still gotta smile in
Still
everybody's
gotta be
faces.
like, hey, and be hospitable
Yeah,
and
I still gotta ask people how are you doing, but some of those people may not ask how I'm doing. You
there
know,
you go.
so that's where it started to become more of a I don't know. I think it was just one of those things where like started getting a little bit more in my mind, started being
Mm,
feeling alone in that capacity. But
yeah.
it's one of those things where you gotta roll with the punches.
And so then my question for you is in
Hmm.
that, because I think that that's a sentiment that a lot of people will resonate with,
Yeah,
because whether you are in a space where you are in community every week,
yeah,
right? And or you are in a space where you might just be in a bit more of you're in your little cubicle, or you're
hmm,
in your office, or et cetera, et cetera. That's a sentiment that I know that a lot of people can resonate with on different type of levels.
yeah,
So if I was that person and I'm like, hey, Anthony, what is one practical thing that I could do so that way I can,
yeah,
A, not feel so alone in all of the
yeah,
noise, and B, also make sure that I'm taken care of so I'm not even in a space where that is a constant.
yeah. I think I'm a big words person. So like
Mm,
my love language is words or words of
okay.
affirmation.
Okay.
So anybody that's very communicative of talking to me, talking about whatever it comes down to it, they could even mention just as easy as like, how are you doing, Anthony? What's going on,
That's
Anthony?
good.
I think that's the easiest way to do it.
That's good.
I'm not really the biggest gift receiver or somebody that I'm not really into all of that,
Okay.
but I'm more of like a words of affirmation because
Okay.
that's what I do.
Okay.
For me, I might be the type of person I might look in the mirror and I'm like, yo, you got this.
Ooh, okay.
You look
You're
good, and
him.
you go, I'm him.
Him.
Today I'm him.
Okay.
Tomorrow I'm him.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, him. Him Jones.
Him Jones.
I'm a roll with that.
So I think it's really one of those things for me. Like, as long as people are asking me, how are you doing? Like, what's up? Like, are you good? Checking in, that's perfect.
Yeah.
I think I check in on a lot of people, but, it can always feel like you're not being checked upon as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really what it is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, that's good. And I think that's something that a lot of people can resonate
Hmm.
with, A lot of people can resonate with. And so then within the context of because I know this conversation was around the pivot and things of that nature, but also as we're climbing, as we're growing, as we're
Yeah.
elevating, as we're building, as we're dreaming,
Hmm.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and feeling all of these feels and resonating with, or I guess reconciling better yet,
Yeah.
with the current context of our journeys.
Yeah.
If we were to leave folks with one practical thing, like this is what y'all could do, whether it be lean into community, whether it be get a therapist, whether it be
Yeah.
do all of the things above,
Yeah.
what does that look like for folks?
Um, I think the biggest thing, or what they could take away from this, is that they gotta have some transparency. I think people get to this point where it's like, because you don't say that you're going through something, people assume that you're not going through anything.
Yeah,
You know, so I think as humans, we should always just check in,
we do. Yeah,
ask people,
we do.
just feel like, how are you doing? No matter what, and then you allow them to be able to share what they want to share. But at the end of the day, you did your part
Yeah.
by asking. So from there, it could become something more, and you can be that person that ends up being in that other person's corner.
Hmm.
So I think just being transparent and being honest and going about it like that.
I like that.
Yeah.
I will add one thing because I
Yeah.
still have to lean into my Zambian roots.
Yeah.
Do all of those things and still use wisdom.
Ooh.
Because not everybody really got you like you think they got you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So you have to also be discerning in terms of, as you're leaning into folks, who is it that really has your best interest at heart?
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yes, sir.
That's a that's the I guess that's the best way to even end it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much more that I want to even talk about, but like,
We gotta
yeah,
leave them wanting
yeah,
more.
yeah, we got to.
We got so much more conversation
Yeah.
that we're going to be having, and we also have some guests that
Yeah.
we're going to,
Yeah.
be, bringing on,
Yeah.
and some fun things. And before we do wrap, though, because I had shared with you that I want to do a cooking thing.
Yeah.
Do you think I could cook? Totally random.
I feel like you could. I feel like you could.
See, that's the hesitation.
No, I mean, every time that we, every,
Every time what?
every time we've linked up, we've always went to have food. We've always grabbed food, but you never actually said that you could cook.
So okay, I got you.
You know what I'm
Noted.
saying?
Noted. I got you. And so on that case, on that note,
Yeah.
matter of fact, we will be doing a cooking challenge for the next episode.
All right, cool. That sounds good. Yo, thank you guys so much. That's episode 2 of Open Invite, a show where community, culture, and entertainment intersects.
Absolutely. We'll see y'all next time.
Peace.
Bye.